Well, good day to you. It is April the 5th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs, and also, as always, point out if you're new, remind you again if you've heard these videos before, that if you want to know more about who and what Maitreya is, about his priorities, of what he means for humanity, of course you can listen to more videos that I put up. I put up over 600 videos now, but you can learn a little bit from them. But the best thing to do is to read more about it for yourself. If you look at the description portion of these videos, you'll see links that take you to websites that talk about this information in some way. So you'll get a better sense of this information, you'll get a better sense of whether it's real for you or not by doing that than you can any way else. So hopefully you'll take the time to do it. It's all free. It's there for you whenever you want to look into it. So hopefully at some point you will. Now, if you want to join the discussion, of course, you can post comments. You can post your questions in the comment section. That's what most people do. You can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Link is in the description. You can also join the discussion on Facebook. A link is in the description for the Search for Signs Facebook page. So love it when you do that too. And I do want to thank those people who like posts that I put up on Facebook and even share posts that I put up on Facebook. Thank you very much for doing that. But I want to give a shout out to Luke Williams, Zach Laney, Rick M., Cynthia Jaworski, Pierre Espiso, Thomas Otto, Mark Hill, and James Wambidi, and Visualize Inside. I think that's everybody. Thank you very much for doing that, guys. All right, now I'll start with Rick M. He was congratulating me on my 600th video, and then he went on to say, can't wait to listen to video number 666. Okay, I can. No, I will say something about video 666, okay, that I'm going to put up. It's the video that I'm going to put up between video 665 and 667, and that's it. Okay. Any YouTuber in the history of YouTube that has put up a video, put up more than 667 videos, had to put up video 666. You can't skip over the top of it. So, you know, I know they used to, I don't know if they still do or not, but people were so freaked out about the number 13. It was such bad luck that a lot of skyscrapers skipped over 13. They went from 12 to 14. They didn't even have a 13th floor. Unfortunately, I can't do that. You know, if I want to put up more videos after 665, I'm going to have to put up a video 666, I guess. But anyway, thanks for bringing that up, man. And hopefully, I don't think it's going to happen, but you know, we can always hope that hopefully the superstition around that number will eventually die out, because that's all it is just superstition. Just like the superstition about 7 and 11 being lucky numbers to 13 being an unlucky number. It means nothing, you know. Anyway, I know a lot of Christians would disagree with that statement, but anyway, like I said, at some point I will have to do that. And if you notice that even on some of my videos, I don't have thousands of people listen to my videos all at one time. So, you know, a lot of them will get to view 666. And I've even had some, oh, that says something right there. Does it really? It just says that I don't have that many people watching my videos that quickly. I mean, it just happens like that. So anyway, all right. But thank you very much for the comment. Now let's get on to the next one. Let's see. Where is it? James Wambidi. 5 of my fellow teachers were seated in their staff room a few days ago. When I told them that the Lord Maitreya is the real Christ who is coming back, not Jesus, it sounded like shocking news to them. I'm sure it did. 4 of them left the room immediately, and only 1 remained behind to ask me questions. Well, I mean, that's still a quarter of the people. That's not bad. Or no, it's more than a little less than that. Like 20% of the people in that room decided to stay and were brave enough to ask you a few questions. That's something. You know, typically what I do, James, is I speak the truth and run like hell. So I don't wait for them to leave. I leave. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm out. No, I'm kidding. I would say the best thing to do, what not to do, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm just saying because I don't know you, you know, in general, this is for anybody, is to not ram it down somebody's throat. You know, that doesn't work, right? But to speak the truth as you see it. We don't all, I don't think any one of us really has a grasp on the truth, so we can only speak the truth as we see it, because that's about the best we can do. And then don't argue with people and let them come up with whatever they come up with. If they want to leave, they can leave. If they want to ask you questions, they can ask you questions. And here's the other thing too, James, is, and I've noticed this by doing as many videos that I've done on this channel, and as many people have commented over the years, is that a lot of times people will comment, ask a question or two, and they might come back, a few years later or a few months later or whatever, and ask another question or a comment. So it's still kind of there for them, as a seed, I guess, is we're planting seeds is all we're doing. Because in general, and this is coming from Benjamin Creme, anybody that hears about Maitreya, anybody that even sees a picture of Maitreya, like the one on the background of this video with him in Nairobi, Kenya, that's it. That's all they have to do. And Maitreya then can enter their life without infringing their free will. And eventually Maitreya is going to enter all our lives. When we all see him on the day of declaration, know who he is for who he is, that's when we'll know. And the more people that know or suspect that he is Maitreya, or he is the weighted teacher, or whatever, or even if they just see a picture of him and that's it, he can then say who he is to them when that day of days and not infringe upon their free will. So, if you believe this information on any level, the best thing to do is to talk about it on whatever level you see. The other thing too to look at is, and to talk about with people, is the priorities of Maitreya, what he's saying that humanity must do, which right now is we must create peace. But then if you look at the two approaches, right, what we're doing now with, let's say, the United States. I like to pick on the United States because I'm an American, but I also see what they're doing is wrong, right? What they claim will bring about peace, security, prosperity doesn't, because it hasn't. Nothing that the United States has done, except for one thing, and I'll talk about that in a second, has brought about peace. Not one thing. So everything that's happened after the 50s has brought anything but peace. More terrorism, more crime, more war, those kind of things, more bloodshed. Going into Vietnam did not stop the spread of communism. It did not bring about peace. The war on terror has not ended terrorism at all. It's done the exact opposite. But what the United States did do, which God knows why they didn't continue on with it and with more nations, because it did have this effect, is the Marshall Plan. So if you want to look at the two histories and see what is true and what isn't true, that would be a really good thing to start with looking at and investigating for yourself. That's why I put a link in the description for YouTube videos that talk about the Marshall Plan. Now, they don't talk about the Marshall Plan in this way, but you can kind of look at it, and this might add a different dimension to how you're looking at it. But the nations that participated in the Marshall Plan right after World War II were at one time at war with one another, and since not one of them has attacked one another. The end result of it was there's goodwill amongst those nations. The people trust other people from those nations better than they do any other nation. It brought about a limited amount of peace amongst those nations, and it didn't last very long. And so even though it ended 70-something years ago, we still have a peaceful relationship with those nations to some degree. Hopefully we will continue to have a peaceful relationship until the principle of sharing takes place amongst all the nations. But that has been the result of it thus far. So if you look at it, when you talk about this with people, look at it and say, you might not believe anything I'm saying about Maitreya, but look at the priorities. What is he saying? Without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. And without peace, there will be no future. Very simple. But is there truth to that? And that's when I bring up the Marshall Plan. Nobody's been able to come back to me and contradict what I'm saying about the Marshall Plan. Not one person, because that's the truth of the matter. We don't have to wonder if the principle of sharing will bring about truth. It already did. It just didn't do it very much because it wasn't done very long. And see what I'm saying? But what would happen if we do it to all the nations, amongst all the nations? Would it bring about justice and bring about peace? I think it would, based on the historical aspect of it. Jesus said 2,000 years ago, a tree is known by its fruit. Very simple. And that applies to what any teacher would say. But in terms of this teacher, Maitreya, Does it apply to what he's saying? Without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there would be no peace. And without peace, there would be no future. That's why Maitreya says the only way to bring about peace is to institute the principle of sharing. There's no other way. It will never bring, nothing that anybody will do, any country will do, will bring about peace until we try the principle of sharing. It won't. And I don't think we will start it until the last aspect of it, until humanity sees that our very future depends on whether we do it or not. That will be the deciding moment that humanity has to make this choice. Do we continue on in the same way that we've been doing and life on this planet forever, or try the principle of sharing and see if it doesn't do exactly what happened with the Marshall Plan amongst the Western European nations and the United States, but do it with everybody? Let's try it. So that's going to be the choice that humanity has to make in the very, very near future. All right, but thank you for the comment. All right, Mark Hill. Now, you had a couple comments. I'm going to read the first one. You said about the Master Speaks sharing. You said that was published in like 85. It was actually published in 82, so close enough. But anyway, we're splitting hairs here at this point. But I do want to read just the first part of your second comment. And the reason why I read the first comment about it being published in 85 is because it could be interpreted as maybe that was outdated and antiquated, but it isn't. You know, that article. His articles still apply to today, even though they were written a long time ago, just like the truths in the Bible were written 2,000 years ago and still apply to today. But anyway, Mark Hill, what'd you say? You said, I've spoken before about how Christianity has many times split my mind. The dichotomy of opening my heart to love, joy, peace, and all the fruits of the Spirit, but somehow ending up trailing off and representing nothing of the like, all the while professing my behavior is inspired by God. And you talked about other things, and I just wanted to kind of touch on this part. But, you know, and for lack of a better word, okay, and I'm not saying this is the case for you, but it was the case for me, and I'm sure it's a case for a lot of other people, is you become disillusioned, not with the truths in the Bible, but just with religion in and of itself. I'm not saying this is what's going on with you. I'm just throwing this out there to think about, okay? And this is what's been going on with a lot of people, because we're waking up to the truth that belief is just belief. It's not reality. It's one thing. But when you look at the Bible, like let me go back. Let me put it on me. When I started to become disillusioned with my religious beliefs, it wasn't that I was disillusioned with the truths in the Bible. It was how I was interpreting it, trying to apply it to my life, how I was seeing other people were interpreting it and applying it to their life. You know, but it all goes back to, I think, something that Maitreya said about religion and about looking at God and worshiping God. He says, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God? And if you look at it within yourself, if you look at it within others at this time, but even if you go back historically and you look at early mankind, they prayed to God who they thought was a hunter. When they looked at the stars, a lot of the constellations had bows and arrows and those kind of things, because that's what they saw God to be, because they themselves were hunters. You know, I've never once prayed to God for a good hunt. Not once, because you know why? I'm not a hunter. You know what I'm saying? Now, I go to the grocery store and the food's waiting for me when I get there most of the time, right? But I pray to God for other things. I see God as differently than perhaps you see God. You know, because I relate differently than you relate differently to people. Do you see what I'm saying? But is my interpretation of who and what God is right is correct and yours isn't? Or is it just the way that who I am? You see what I'm saying? So for instance, you know, when I see and read Jesus and talk about Jesus, Jesus is not a capitalist. He's not he doesn't believe in commercialization. He believes in justice and sharing and peace. Guess what? That's exactly what I believe. But other people, and you think I'm being sarcastic, they believe Jesus is a capitalist. He's a Republican. He believes in Republican values. He believes that America should come first. And if you think I'm being sarcastic, I'm not. And I come across people in my life that believe this, but also you see people on the news who they got the little the gold cross hanging from their little chain, and they sit there on TV and they say that God is a Republican and Democrats are evil. But guess what? If they were a Democrat, they would think that God was more Democrat than Republican, right? Go figure. If these same people were born in a Middle Eastern country, they would be worshiping Allah the same way that they're worshiping Jesus. Their whole reality would be different based on just where they were born. I know Krishnamurti in one of his videos talked about how there were 300,000, and I think this is a very, very low estimate. So he said there were 300,000 different gods in India. And he kind of tongue-in-cheek said, but he was speaking the truth too. He said, you can paint a little design on a stone and plant it and put it next to a tree and come back a few days later and somebody's going to be sitting there worshiping the tree. And I'm sure a lot of Westerners will go, that's ridiculous. But yet we all do that. We all see Jesus as how we are. That's it. That's the key. And when you become disillusioned with religion, it's because you're becoming disillusioned with your own way of looking at life. The truths are there within the Bible. You just have to have the courage and the common sense to look at it and know what to look for and know what to maybe say, okay, that's just filler. This I need to work on. Like, for instance, I tell you, if all someone took in the Bible and tried to apply to their life is what you sow, so shall you reap, their life would be changed dramatically for the better. Especially if they really tried to apply it to their life, try to live harmlessly within the law of cause and effect and those kind of things, started relating to one another differently, their life would be changed by the time their life ended. They would be a totally different person than they would if they didn't apply that. If they breezed right through that and just tried to ram the 10 Commandments down everybody's throat, they're not going to be the same person at the end of their life. They're not going to be anywhere where that other person was. Even if they knew the Bible upwards, downwards, and sideways. But yet they breezed right past what you sow, so shall you reap. That one little verse, is universal. It affects everyone. Doesn't matter what the color your skin is, how much money you have, where you live on this planet, or even if you do live on this planet, actually. It affects every single person without exception. All of humanity. The best thing to do is to learn how to live within that law. That's why Maitreya and these masters will be teaching probably not long after they're out known for who they are, that law, and how important it is to live within that law, not only for individuals, but also nations. That's what makes our life for good or for ill, without exception. In the other thing too is, some of these other verses in the Bible that I think people misinterpret because of who they are and how they relate to themselves and other people. Things like, live life more, what is it? Life more abundantly, I think is what it is. Life more abundantly is a phrase that I've heard. Or you get it a lot of times when you, I know I get it a lot of times when I ask somebody just how they're doing here in the southern part of the United States. And you have a lot of these prosperity Christians who think that Jesus bestows all these riches upon them, life more abundantly. It says it in the Bible, doesn't it? Right? Must pertain to me and how much money I have in my bank account and what kind of car I drive. So when I ask them how they're doing, they say, I'm blessed. I am so blessed. And I always kind of chuckle to myself because I know, based on the history of everybody who said that, if I just got to know them a little bit better, I know where they're coming from. But also the fact that they're misinterpreting everything about that one saying life more abundantly. Or those who have more shall be given is the other one, I think is the other misinterpreted thing. But what did the Christ really mean by this? If you want to read a article that was written in 1982, Mark, might give you some insight into that. He says, this gift of life the Christ will bestow, revealing himself as the water carrier, the emancipator of all men, bringing, quote unquote, life more abundantly, as he long ago foretold. With this life more abundantly will come a new creativity. From men will flow a rich stream of ideas and discoveries surpassing all that has gone before, and this in accordance with cosmic law. Nature will yield her secrets, The universe will submit to man's inquiring mind, and the knowledge thus acquired, placed at the service of the general good, will beautify and enrich all life on earth. It doesn't really have anything to do with how much money somebody has in their account, does it? But yet that's how people interpret it, because they're selfish, pretty much. Just like when you talk about the principle of sharing. The very first thing that a lot of people think about, because of the way that they see life about themselves, is, oh my God, the masters are going to come take all this money out of my account and force me to give money to somebody else. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with nations giving of resources to other nations. That's the complacency. People always talk about, well, it's going to bring about, complacency amongst people and blah, 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 blah. But yet there's already complacency in the world. It's going to bring about justice, and that's bring about peace eventually, because that's what we talked about in terms of the Marshall Plan. Look it up. You'll see. But that's where I think that this dichotomy is coming from within you. And I don't know you, Mark. I'm just throwing it out there to you for you to think about, is coming from the fact that we're misinterpreting their own scriptures. We're putting it about ourselves, and then we become disillusioned with, why is this not helping me or whatever? Because maybe we're digging in the wrong spot. Maybe we're planting a seed of corn thinking that we're going to get wheat, and we don't. We get corn. You know what I mean? But that's one, I think, that is misinterpreted greatly. The other one is an eye for an eye, right, is another one. People seem to think that means that if somebody harms me, I get to harm them back.
Remember,
with
to
impunity.
take action.
When in actuality, it actually is the reverse. If I harm you, then it's going to come back on me, is what they were saying. It's the opposite of that. But the other thing is, Ben's master wrote an article, and if I read all these articles out, it's going to be which is something that I never do. It's going to be a while before I get to this one.